Hey guys, it's Alex Burtson, the Manic Scholar, back again with another Michael chart. Today we're looking at Alan Moore, who's the writer of many graphic novels like From Hell, Watchmen, V for Vendetta, Swamp Thing, and a bunch of other ones. Um, so I got his Michael chart here. If you don't know what Michael Teachings is and what a Michael chart is, um, Michael Teachings is a channel body of knowledge that talks about our soul types called roles and the essence configurations that we have, like different traits that we each have for our whole reincarnation cycle, as well as things called overleaves, which are characteristics we take on for each life. And there's also soul ages, which is a timeline of how we progress through our reincarnation cycle and learning the lessons that we of each of the different soul ages as we mature through our reincarnational process. So I'm going to talk about everything on his chart here. We'll talk about his essence first, and then his overleaves. So these are the two sections of the chart. Whenever you're looking at a chart, um, and the essence is what stays the same for a whole reincarnational cycle. So for all Alan Moore's lives on Earth, he's gonna have all these characteristics here. So his role is scholar, which is the neutral axis called the assimilation axis. Um, it's the role that basically records all information and knowledge and organizes it for the world so that they have a resource there for information that they need. So they're like the library for everybody else. They're the ones that record everything so that everybody has a resource to depend on to figure out things, to learn things. So learning is a really big thing. Um, People who are scholars tend to have lots of different hobbies or interests because they're just naturally very curious. So that's kind of the theme of the scholars. But they do like writing, and he's a writer, so that really fits really well. Um, so that's his role. Um, they also understand all the other roles better than any other role does because of the neutral type. They can see different perspectives very easily, so they can relate to all the different roles and can identify them pretty easily compared to the other roles. So that's an interesting thing to note. Um, his essence twin is a server, but it's alive right now. So there's no plans for him to meet them. So yeah, his essence twin is he's not going to have so much server characteristics in this life because his essence twin is alive. But sometimes, like in some lives, they might be discarnate while he's alive, so he would have some more server characteristics, which is like warm, nurturing, and caring kinds of stuff. His cadence position is warrior, which is really good for being productive and seeking challenge and getting through things, being very action oriented. He also has some priest there, which is focused on the higher things, the higher good. Um, Wants to see people grow spiritually. Is focused on the spiritual realm a lot. Um, but they also get involved in politics sometimes. That's what's typical for a priest. But they usually in like religious or spiritual traditions, there's a lot of priests. So he has some priest characteristics going on too. So that's interesting. He's got an artisan and king. He's got two task companions, an artisan and a king. Um, Artisan helps for the creativity. King can make it more action oriented. Um, and his cadre and entity, he's in 4-7. Cadre 4, entity 7, which is actually the same one that I'm in. So he's in my soul family, essentially. Entity 7 of Cadre 4. Along with Kanye West and XXX Tentacion, they're also in this entity. His orientation is truth, so he's focused on the intellectual aspect of things throughout all his lives. Um, Focus on what's knowing what the truth is in the highest sense of the intellect. His male-female energy balance is right in the middle, 48-52. So he's not too much in either direction, but he's slightly on the female energy side, which is more focused on being rather than doing. But yeah, he's pretty balanced. So he's going to have both being and doing as big themes. His frequency is 46, which is right in the middle, so that's nothing too crazy. But his previous cycles is 14, which is a lot. That's the same amount of previous cycles that Buddha had. The average on the planet is 4, so he's more than 3 times. He's had he's lived on 14 different planets, going through these the reincarnational cycle, going through all the different soul ages as different roles. He's done this 14 times before he decided to be a scholar in this cycle. So that's a lot. Most of the charts I've gotten were 10, but the average on the planet is 4. Jesus had 19, and he was the most that we know of. So this can give him a little bit more complexity compared to other people because he's had so much life experience through several different cycles in the past. So that can make him a more complex individual with more experience to relate to. So now look at his global job and community responsibility. His global job is sacrifice, and this is essentially self-sacrifice. So it's like giving yourself to a higher cause, to a higher purpose, and sacrificing your time and energy in dedication to this higher purpose for society and for everybody to benefit for it. So it's about self-sacrifice. His community responsibility endurance is double warrior. So it's a lot about enduring through the hard things and any struggles and stuff that the community goes through. Somebody with the community responsibility will support that if they have endurance. It's the most warrior community responsibility you can have. So being very productive and also protecting and allowing the communities to thrive through all your effort is what endurance is essentially. Yeah, the global job sacrifice is a mix of priest and warrior, and endurance is a mix of is just all warrior. So he's got some priest stuff there in his global job. And if you know Alan Moore, he has a lot of like deep themes in his writings, deep emotional truths, and he's trying to teach lessons about society and our lives on a deeper level through his work. So that's his essence. All this stuff is the same for all his lives on Earth. So he's going to have the same global job and community responsibility on each life. He's going to be a scholar with a server essence twin and warrior priest secondaries for all his lives on Earth. So now let's talk about his overleaves real quick. He's in the mature soul age at level 7. So if you look at the timeline here, these are the 5 soul ages we go through as we're incarnating. Once we get to old level 7, we stop incarnating and we go to the higher planes, and we go through 2 more soul ages where we're relating to our entity and our cadre before we complete our cycle completely. But the reincarnational cycle ends at the old soul level 7. But he's at mature level 7, so he's at the very end of the mature soul age, which is focused on relationships, emotions, the inner world. It's very introspective and it goes very deep. And those are really big themes for his work. Like you can see just like how emotionally heavy all his work is, and it deals with a lot of societal problems and different things that he talks about through his writing and his graphic novels that he does. So the mature soul age makes a lot of sense for kind of his perspective, but he's at level 7, so he's basically teaching people what he's learned throughout this whole soul age, what the lessons were for that. And he's preparing to get into the old soul age, which is focused more on building context and understanding for how everything fits together, how everything works in his own experience, which is a time when he'll probably teach a lot more people about his own what he's learned throughout his process. So he's not completely done with his uh, reincarnational cycle yet. He has to go through the old soul age first. But he's ahead of, in terms of where he is in the soul age. He's ahead of where people are, like in the U.S. Like the U.S. overall is at like young level 6, so he's in a different perspective that's going to be coming to the planet in a stronger way coming up. It'll be the most dominant soul age on the planet coming up in the next couple hundred years or so, um, as everybody progresses in their soul age. So that's interesting to see. His goal is acceptance, but sliding to discrimination. So he's got a mix in this life of focusing on saying yes to things and accepting the circumstances of life and saying they don't really have control over what happens to you. So sometimes these people who have acceptance might lose somebody really close to them, like maybe a family member, or they just have a hard life and they have to learn how to soften and accept things more, the circumstances of life. But discrimination is actually about saying no to things. So sometimes he's going to be in discrimination where he's learning to say no to certain experiences to keep them out of his life. But mostly he's going to be learning how to say yes in this life and accept things as they are. His attitude is pragmatist, which is a very practical attitude. He'll do whatever makes the most sense practically. His mode is power, which is how he releases his energy is what a mode is, and power you release it very strongly. It's like he speaks with authority when he's talking. Um, that's kind of what power is about. It's on the expression axis, so it's very expressive as part of things. His centering is moving, emotional. So he has moving first. He responds to life usually through action, through movement of his body, and then he goes into his emotions based on whatever he feels through moving through his body. It informs his emotional state essentially. His obstacles are greed and martyrdom. Greed is there's kind of a feeling of lack inside that needs to be filled with different things, and it's different for each individual. But it gives you kind of like a big appetite for things. It could be just you want love, or it could be money, sex, attention, or it could be higher things trying to get more and more spiritual truth, even as could be part of it. Um, Martyrdom is feeling unworthy, and so you needlessly suffer in trying to find worth. Um, so that's kind of the themes for martyrdom. And these are going to be stronger in certain people than others, so they're not always huge factors that the person is dealing with that's destroying their lives, but it's a little obstacle to overcome for each person, which makes life a little bit more difficult and challenging. So he's got 3 body types. Usually people have 2. So he has a little bit more variety here. But the main one is mercurial, which is very focused on the intellect and communication. It's on the expression axis, so communicating is going to be a big thing. Saturnian as a secondary body type. It's really focused on leadership and authority. It's the active, positive, masculine body type. And then there's solar, which is the neutral one, which is very like childlike and youthful. But the biggest themes here I see are the mercurial and Saturnian for the communication and the leadership. Those are the themes I see there. His quadrant is power. So when he's in a group setting, he's the one that wants to take control and lead the group, take the power position. And his needs are adventure, security, and exchange. Adventure is pretty self-explanatory. Security deals with having things you need to be secure, like a home, food, shelter, clothing, stuff like that. Um, an exchange deals with like communicating one on one with people, having a back and forth, like exchanging ideas or energies or different things. It's really that one on one connection is with others is emphasized there. So that's everything in his chart. What you can see overall, he's got a good mix of different things. Um, but there's a lot. There's some. He's a scholar is the main thing, and he's got warrior and priest as secondaries. He also has warrior and priest in his global job. So the warrior productive aspect is going to be really big, as well as the priest aspect of the higher things, the higher good spiritual things, and communicating about those kinds of things is going to be really big here. Um, goal of acceptance is on the expression axis, along with power. So as well as greed and mercurial, those are all blue. So a lot of expression and axis stuff going on here too. But the focus of this life is learning to say yes to things, essentially, and he's at the end of the mature soul age. So a lot of the stuff that he talks about really reflects the mature soul age and kind of the lessons that you learn through going very deep and introspective, being introspective, and getting to know yourself on a deep emotional level inside. You're kind of exploring the inner world more. Is kind of the themes of the soul age that he is finishing up, and it you can see how it gets communicated through the work that he does. So yeah, that's pretty interesting to see. Um, and he has 14 previous cycles, which is a lot. It's a lot more than what I see typically. So he's a pretty advanced soul. So yeah, it was pretty cool to see what is in his chart. So that's Alan Moore, guys. I'm gonna do another video coming up for Maynard James Keenan, the singer of Tool and Pussifer, and a bunch of other bands like A Perfect Circle. So I'll do that as well. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Manic Scholar out.